Welcome business news now in a bid to address the wide range of needs of Nigeria and other crisis-ridden countries suffering from the impact of the Russia-Ukraine crisis amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The president of the World Bank Group, David Malpass, says that the bank is working on a crisis response of around $170 billion in financing between this month and June 2023. Speaking during his address to the Development Committee of this year's World Bank International Monetary Fund Spring Meeting, Mr. Malpass notes that the gathering is timely as it also is taking place at a time of overlapping global crisis. And according to the World Bank president, the project is modeled on the rapid surge in financing that the project and the bank's group would also provide in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which so far has provided a $157 billion fund over a 15-month period to help countries address their health, economic, and social impacts of the pandemic. He, however, notes that economic recovery is at risk amid geopolitical tensions, with investment, trade, and growth affected, even as most countries also face further risks from the pandemic and uneven deployment of vaccines. And now the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Kumi Adesina, says the fertilizer crisis triggered by the Russian war in Ukraine could put more than $10 billion worth of food production at risk in Africa if nothing is done to abate the imminent food crisis being faced globally. According to the AFDB president, the bank is also focused on boosting massive food production to combat the looming global food crisis in the country and on the African continent at large due to the war in Ukraine. He, however, notes as well that the bank is already working on a blueprint to tackle food insecurity as well as economic turbulence faced in the continent. Ms. Adesina also adds that African Development Fund would also be allowed by countries to use its equity to leverage more resources from international capital markets to meet the rapidly growing need of African countries. And away from that report now, the telecommunications sector in Nigeria, which has been one of the major contributors to the country's revenue over the years, is gradually reflecting not so bright indicators in its gross domestic product growth trend. Now, according to a report by AfriInvest Research, the GDP performance of the sector shrunk as it grew 7.3% on a year-on-year basis. On a quarterly basis now, it was observed that the telecom's GDP grew by 7.7%. in the first quarter, 5.9% in the second quarter, 10.9% in the third, and then 5.3% in the fourth quarter of last year. And notably, the GDP growth rate in the fourth quarter of last year was the slowest in 14 quarters since the first quarter of 2018. Despite the unimpressive record, the telecom sector remains resilient as its growth pace continues to outperform the broader economy. The report also shows that Nigeria's telecommunications sector recorded a GDP growth rate of 7.69%, which is the slowest since the first quarter of 2018, when it first grew at 1.88%. Now, the federal government says it has identified preferred and reserved bidders for 12 federal highways up for concession under the Highway Development and Management Initiative. Special Advisor on Communications to the Minister of Works and Housing, Hakeem Bello, who made this known in a statement, disclosed that this development is based on the value-added concession request for proposal evaluation report presented and approved on the 21st of this month at the Project Steering Committee meeting chaired by the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola. He also adds that the first phase of the value-added concession under the HDMI 6.2 concession 12 economically viable road corridors to technically and financially capable private sector firms and consortia. Now, the 12 highways represent 1,963 kilometers, which is the equivalent of about 5.6% of Nigeria's 35,000-kilometer federal highways, which includes Benin Asaba, Abuja Lokoja, Kano Katsina, Onitsha Owerri Aba axis, Shagamu, Benin, as well as Abuja Kefi Akwanga highways, and others include Kano Maiduguri, looking at the Potoskum and Damaturu axis, Lokoja Benin, Enugu, Port Harcourt. We also have Ilorin, Jeba, Axis, Lagos, Ota, Abeokuta, as well as Lagos, Badagry, and the semi-border region. The HDMI is a PPP initiative of the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing that seeks to attract sustainable investment and funding in the development of road infrastructure and maximize the use of assets along the right-of-way of federal highways across the country. And now shifting focus to the international front, Asian shares bounced up today after a late revival on Wall Street, though global growth fears stoked by China's strict COVID-19 curbs and an expected streak of aggressive Federal Reserve tightening sapped risk appetite. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan ticked up 1.1%, helped by China's blue chip index added 1.4% after its worst day in 2 years on Monday. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index also bounced 1.9% and the tech sector rallied 5.3%, boosted by mega firms such as Tencent Holdings and Alibaba Group. News that Elon Musk, the world's richest man, had clinched a deal to buy Twitter for $44 billion cash has also underpinned sentiment. The nervousness about China's economic slowdown, however, hit Australian shares with the local benchmark down 2% by early afternoon, hurt by particularly declines in miners. Japan's Nikkei stock also had some earlier gains and was down 0.04% by early afternoon. US stock features were little change in Asian trade. And bringing some more now, Elon Musk clinched a deal to buy Twitter Incorporation for $44 billion cash in his latest move in a transaction that will shift control of the social media platform populated by millions of users and global leaders to the world's richest person. It is a seminal moment for the 16-year-old company, which emerges as one of the world's most influential public squares and now faces a string of challenges. Elon Musk, who calls himself a free speech absolutist, also has criticized Twitter's moderation. He wants Twitter's algorithm for prioritizing tweets to be public and objects to giving too much power on the service to corporations that advertise. Discussions over the deal, which last week appeared uncertain, accelerated over the weekend after Elon Musk would Twitter shareholders with financing details of his offer. Under pressure, Twitter started negotiating with Elon Musk to buy the company at his proposed $54.20 per share price. Wrapping up business news now, oil prices on the international market bounced back today, steadying after a sharp fall of 4% in the previous session, as worries over China's fuel demand are also soothed by the central bank's pledge to support an economy hit by renewed COVID-19 curbs. US West Texas Intermediate crude recorded a price increase of 0.54% to hit $99.07 per barrel. Brent crude now sells at $103.10 per barrel, registering an upward price margin of 0.76%. Bonnie Light's performance has lost some steam, recording a 6.46% drop in price to sell at $99.78 per barrel, and for the OPEC basket crude oil dealers offer $107.70 per barrel with a price decline of 1.06%.